we're not gonna spend much time on that, but there's some things you're legally required to do regarding agency. That form takes care of most of them. Page 1 of the RPA takes care of the other 2. And in this form, oops. A lot of BS there, yeah. We used to have 3 versions of this. PRBS. How come it's there? Anybody?
Disclosing to the client, there might be possible buyers making an offer on the house. There could be, I never understood the multiple sellers.
I got a story for that. We got reamed one time by a seller I had because we had 2 subdivisions listed and we were selling the lots of one faster than the other one. And when people called in on the real rural one, it was something in Wasno and Ranchita Estates. They were kind of similar, but 2 different price points, 2 different like levels of luxury. So they'd call in on one subdivision, and sometimes we just switch them to the other one because that was a better fit. So the lady that owned the Wasno subdivision just reamed me but good. We didn't have this form back then. We have it now. It's like, hey,
what's the form?
Well, we're taking calls from people about property, and we got to match them up with the one. I can't just sell yours. You have to understand that I have other listings that may fit these people better, and that's what the multiple sellers thing is. But why is it in there? Why does it pull up? I mean, we'll talk a little bit about what it does, but there's one main reason, because I've had people argue with me like, we really don't need that form. We do. When we use the RPA, we have to have that form. Why is that?
2 different people on file.
No, nothing to do with that. No, it's easier than that. Here, you holding it in? You're gonna crack a freaking tooth, man. I tell you, because it's on the contract. There's a box checked in the contract. That's why it's in there. People say, I don't need that form. Okay, then somehow you got to uncheck that box that's CAR checked in the contract. Good luck with that. And it says in there where the box. Well, we'll just go look at the box. We're gonna do when we do disclosures. We'll do all this junk. I think.
The way you explain that is there could be a chance of multiple people bidding on one property, and that letting the seller know that I have other properties or there's other sellers that are trying to sell and I might have to sell.
Yeah, I represent more than one seller. It's like, I'm really talking to you right now, but I got a sack full of business. I got, 100 buyers, and 9 of them might want this house. You just need to know that that's a thing that could happen in the real world. That's part of it, is multiple buyers and multiple sellers. I guess we'll explain it right now. The other critical thing is dual agency is illegal in California unless something happens. Does anybody know what that is? Disclosure and consent. You have to explain dual agency to them, which the AD and the PRBS do reasonably well, and then they have to acknowledge receipt of that explanation and consent to it, or it's illegal. You can't do dual agency without this form, not with a buyer. You can do it with a seller, because this exact language is in all the listing contracts, and it's in the buyer representation agreements, which is why this form wasn't used much. It used to be called, we had the AD and the DA, remember the DA? And people called it the dual agency form. Okay, totally wrong, but that's what we used it for more than anything else. And if you had it in the listing contract, the seller didn't have to sign it. Now I'm actually getting way too deep for the time I got. The key to this thing is you got to use it because the box is checked in the contract. Anytime there's a box checked in the contract, that form is part of that contract. And if you haven't got that form completely filled out and all signed up and everybody agreed to, you don't have a contract. Like Howard said Thursday, you have a problem, not a contract. Because you think one thing and the other side thinking something else, because one of those pieces is missing. So when you see the little check boxes, it's and some of them are pre-checked, some of them aren't. Like you're going to pull in a trust advisor or something, you check the boxes, it forms automatically pulls it in when it's working right, and it usually is now. If you're using templates, and the template teacher will tell you all about it, I check a lot of boxes in all my templates to remind me to do stuff. Make sure you uncheck them. I just wrote that offer I wrote to Monica. I wrote it as VA offer because I had just copied a VA deal. And I left the boxes checked. So then Kim's the last one that caught it. She goes, this isn't VA. I said, check the counter. We fixed it without rewriting the offer. So make sure the boxes you don't want checked are unchecked. kind of a form software thing. If they're checked, they gotta be there. And every time you check a box now in the RPA, some form will show up. Oh, there it is. WFA does pull in now. That's awesome because that's a great form. So, anybody know who lives there? No? Bob? Munsters? No? 1313 Mockingbird Lane. I Googled it because I didn't know what town it was. Mockingbird Heights, California. A little suburb of Beverly Hills. Wire fraud advisory we'll get to later. Good thing it's in there. Yeah, yeah, I did, yeah, but I said it really quiet. Is that all the screen I got? Yeah, that's it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know why I just don't have any room. But anyway, never mind. So let's get started. So you're going to write it off. Now this one's, I probably should use a blank, but this will kind of help. So see the date prepared right in the top there. Okay, that date's wrong. Boy, that's been there a while, right? What day is that? And what do we use it for?
Then you write the offer.
Right, the day you start working on it. Do we use it for anything else?
You're always going back to it.
Right, every time you want to refer to this RPA, stop that. In any ancillary document, I say that word because I like it. Anything that has to do with this contract, if you're going, this is a counter offer to that certain offer that was written a certain day, date prepared, not the date of the last signature, nothing like that. I went round and round with people about that for eons until CAR 1 year goes, date prepared is the reference date, don't use it for counting, and that's the date you refer to. So that was like a huge relief. Angie and I could quit arguing with people. It was awesome. We'll still argue with you. Don't worry about it. Paragraph 1 is basically the statute of frauds satisfying paragraph in the contract. You have to know who's buying it, where the property is, how much they're paying, stuff like that. When's the escrow going to close? Apparently it's never gonna in my example here because it's blank. That basically satisfies most of the stuff you need to actually create a legal and binding contract in California. The rest of this stuff is all stuff that's come out of lawsuits and supports the top part and sets out the terms of the performance of the contract. That all makes sense? Everybody with that kind of? Girls went away. Did I erase them? Oh, I probably am. I probably clicked the screen and put it behind the others. Okay, so buy our property, price, and then your escrow day here. Can't remember what paragraph it's in. The RPA and just about every document in here, listings, all that stuff, everything in here has a time is of the essence clause. Escrow instructions even have it most of the time, I think. So these dates are all virtually cast in stone. You can't change these dates because time is of the essence in this agreement without mutual agreement by the parties. The only one we can wiggle on is this closing date after acceptance, because in the real world, it's so hard to hit an actual day because something always happens, whether it's holidays or the appraiser broke his toe on the way out, God knows what. Something will happen and probably hold you up. Or like in the case of one I'm just doing right now, it's supposed to close August 4th. It's closing Friday. We didn't need to amend anything. We just had to make sure everybody agreed to it, but escrow didn't need to know anything other than that it was okay because the contract was written within 45 days. The 30-day close is still within the 45, so we were legit. The exciting part about this box here is I think within now fits. We used to put W/IN. See how that goes. I just broke my own rule right there too. Here's something that's this a forms deal, and it's kind of just my deal. I always use all caps all the time. Because if you start scanning or faxing or anything, and when you got mixed case, pretty soon you got blur. With all caps, it'll survive a few photocopies and stuff a lot better. There you go. And it makes it fit. Look at that. So paragraph 2, look at me just burn through this. harkens back to the forms we started with. This is our agency step. I can see this one a lot better. So you have to disclose, elect, and confirm. That's the law for agency in California. You have to tell people what different kinds of agents in real estate are. Then you have to pick one. Then you have to get confirmation from the parties that they're cool with what you picked. So paragraph 2 pretty much takes care of all that, disclosure and election, and then the sign in the offer is the confirmation of agency relationships. So 2B, those boxes are left unchecked about as much as any box in the contract. It's a pretty safe bet usually that if you're representing the buyer and it's not your office, that the other guy's representing the seller, because they're not representing the buyer, so they're representing the seller exclusively. See where I check the boxes there? And then the buyer's agent is representing the buyer exclusively. And then for you new guys, it's a little confusing term, and maybe someday they'll change it. The seller's representative is always called the listing agent. Everybody's probably heard that, right? The buyer's representative is always called the selling agent. Everybody muffs that. Because doesn't it make sense that the seller's agent is the selling agent? But everywhere it talks in the contract or anything you'll ever see about the selling agent is the buyer's representative. Any questions so far?
Can you touch on, so the dual agency, you're gonna check both buyer and seller? And
You know,
agency is anything under this umbrella, not just you personally, it's if the representative is in the company, dual agency.
yeah. So
You're working with Elizabeth, what box would he check? If Elizabeth has a listing and you have the buyer.
now this is where in the forums it gets a little interesting, because everything in here that talks about agents says like 2B there. Hopefully you guys can see that pretty good. Listing agent, so let's say it's Noah's listing, so it's and the broker is what goes in those lines. The name of the company goes, everyone, there's never a person's name in there unless they are the company. Like Jan Sanderlin was just Jan Sanderlin until she got a DBA. So other than that, it's going to be Century 21 Village or what hometown, whatever, the company name goes in there.
Hubbell.
So
Let's stick with
yeah.
that.
I was going to talk bad about Century 21. Shall I not?
No, we're not.
Okay. I think it's a violation of the code of ethics, in case anybody was wondering. So listing agent in this case, right, would be Hubbell, because Noah's got the listing. Hubbell Real Estate Group. I don't know if you guys abbreviate or acronymize or what do you do. And on 2B it says, and this is a thing you kind of got to watch out for, but it screws up the way the forms work. It says selling agent. So Elizabeth's got the buyer, so it's Hubbell Real Estate Group as a selling agent. But it says in there, selling agent, print firm name, if not the same as listing agent. If it's the same as a listing agent, you leave it blank. But you just disappeared out of the entire transaction. So we've been filling it in. Even though it says, if this is the same company, don't write it in. Write it in anyway, or they'll never find you. Your name won't be on anything. You won't be able to take a delivery of notices for your client or anything like that. But so to further Dave's point, I guess is where I'm going with that whole thing. When Hubbell Real Estate Group's in the deal, it doesn't matter who's representing Hubbell, because Hubbell represents the client. You represent Hubbell. You don't represent the client. Ostensibly and all that stuff, you're going down if something happens. But the broker is the agent. You are agents of the broker. Okay, so clear as mud, or okay, or good deal. All right, cool. So 2C, see where that box is checked, and that's a default check box. That's the one that's where that PRBS comes in there. Potentially competing buyers and sellers. The other thing in the PRBS, I guess I'll talk about that for a second. Got a whole 30 minutes. Is confidentiality of offers. It's people wonder, like, you know, so they made an offer, like let's go outside. So Dennis Allen's got a listing, and you write an offer and it goes to Dennis. Does Dennis have to keep it a secret? Nah, heck no. Yeah, good head shake. Yeah, no, not a bit, not one bit. Now the seller's instructions are what modifies that. If the seller says, don't tell me anything. I want to be surprised. Like I just, and I don't want to know what the other offers. I'm just so fair. I want to look at every offer on its face and take them independent of the others. Only just look at them one at a time. Well, by the time you get done looking at them all, you know what each one of them says. So what's the and if I call Dennis and I go, hey, Linda wrote you an offer on that house over there. How'd that go? Like, what's going on? There's nothing necessarily to prevent him from telling me what's going on there.
But why would he?
Right. So that's like an office policy, kind of a strategy thing. Like, no, you have to guess. Is it full price? I don't know. Maybe it's like if you create a little worry in the selling agent, then now you're getting better offers, right? You tell them it's at $375. Now you get an offer for $375 and $1. So right, yeah, it just makes more sense, I think. You guys do whatever you want, keep it quiet, just get better competition. So so we're through that. So the finance, so a large part of page 1 after we took care of the statute of frauds. Oops, there's a little speedy.
Something that I could use a little light shed on, maybe at the end, is to reiterate the confusion that I know I'm going to have in my mind with the verbiage on the buyer and seller, listing agent, selling agent. How that you said that everyone gets confused on that. I want to create some acronym or something in my mind that I can reference.
Like a mnemonic, yeah. Got me. I just got to memorize them, man. Selling agent selling the house. Like, no, that won't work. So we'll talk about that over.
One list, one sells. LASA.
LA.
All right, thanks.
That's what Sesame Street's on.
You're selling the house to the buyer.
Right. Yep. You're the selling agent. Yeah. Yep. Now, if you want to talk about it and talk to people and tell them buyer's agent, everybody gets that. So that's okay. Yeah. I like the acronym. Let's go with it. So the financing, I think the things that are important to know, there you go, in the financing are basically the loan terms and the deposit. Now the initial deposit, that was one of my slides, come to think of it. I forgot what they call them. There are 4 requirements to create a contract. Basically, a promise for a promise. Now, one of the 4 requirements for a contract is consideration. And a lot of people get confused with the deposit being part of the consideration. So, can you create a legal and binding and valid contract with 0 in the deposit?
Yes.
Yes. All day long. At that point, right? At that point, what's the first thing that I was gonna tell you that I'm gonna make your life harder than it's been, because you're gonna know stuff that no one else knows. Every agent you ask, if you ask them that, generally, even if they've been around a long time, it's worse. They think you can't have an offer without a deposit. That's just wrong. That's all you need to know. So you're gonna know stuff even just at the end of today that is gonna frustrate the daylights out of you with all the other agents in business. It's just going to happen. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. They're getting better all the time because the contracts are getting more complicated, so we're doing more contracts. But it's the last thing they teach people is how to write an offer, or how to actually write a good contract, so that's what we're working on today. So the deposit isn't necessary to create a legal and binding contract, but it's certainly part of the way we do business, right? So, what we've been kind of wrestling with, I think, for as long as I've been doing it, is how much. Now, back in the days when everything was about $95,000, that was easy, like $500, $1,000, something like that, no problem, Now you got a $400,000 deal, a $2.5 million deal, a $1 million deal, and how big is that deposit going to be? So the question of the group is there a limit on how big that deposit can be for liquidated damages that we're going to touch on after a bit?
Yes.
Yes. Anybody know what it is?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you weren't going to do that. Anybody else knew what it is? 3%. Bob knew. Right? 3% of the purchase price. Yep. That's the legal limit for liquidated damages. Could it be bigger? Yeah, sure. It could be all of it. It won't be. But The only part that will be able to be liquidated in liquidated damages is 3%. You don't have to remember that because I think it's in that liquidated damages clause. It says right in there, it can't be any more than 3% or we can't use it for liquidated damages. And we'll get to that. We'll talk about that clause in a minute. That's something I want to do is look damages and arbitration. So what I've been doing, and just because I've been doing it, and I decided, good enough. I just split the difference. I think 1% is too small, 3% is the legal limit. I'll put 2% in there, give or take, every time. If it's $1 million, I'll put 25 grand-ish in there, something like that, and call it good. And I don't get blowback on that. That's usually enough to keep the listing agent quiet, because that's who's going to gripe about the size of the deposit. And it's so do sellers often get to keep a buyer's deposit with an escrow that doesn't close? It's yeah, good luck with that. Yeah.
Sure, got a question for you.
Yep.
This is from Melissa. In Bakersfield, they list deposit required in the MLS. Do I have to use this amount or can I use more or less? He's thinking.
So what are you working with? Bank repos? Who would do that?
Really strange things over there.
Yeah. I used to work for Debbie Banducci, trust me.
Oh.
Gary, you said an offer there.
4 months.
You said an offer. Gary, you said an offer with it, it came back.
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. And all the signatures in place, right? Yeah. No problem. Yeah. That's called a counter offer over here in Arkansas. Damn right, boy. They do that too. They do that in other states. They write on the offer. That's how they count it. But don't do that. Don't do that. Oh my God, don't do that. So it's probably not going to help your offer because the listing agent is going to be all over. I told you what to do, and I used the MLS to do it. The MLS isn't supposed to be used like that. You can make suggestions and all that stuff. That's more legit. But yeah, if you want to do business with that guy, pony up. That's what I think. I don't know. I love it when I get to set office policy. That's awesome. No one else does. Nobody else likes it. Hi, thanks. So what am I doing now? Oh yeah, one of my other. I was glad that Howard touched on it. I'm just gonna. I just used the errors. Okay, where am I at? So increased deposit, we're going to skip that for now. We're going to talk about how they're going to pay for it. Boy, this is old. They got 5%. So paragraph 3 is financing and contingency. Everything to do with a loan. It's a page and a half long about it. So like a whole page long, split in 2 pages. So 3C says could be an all cash offer. If it's an all cash offer, check the box. And the default in the offer is that the proof of funds is going with the offer. If the proof of funds is going to be a little late, you got to check another box. And it can be 3 days, I think. Buyer shall within 3 days deliver to seller such verification. We'll talk about delivery and time frames and all that stuff as well. Now, if you're the listing agent and you get an offer and it's an all cash offer and they've told you all about how wonderful it is and they didn't check the box, I'd remind them that maybe they missed that box because you need to get your hands on that proof of funds, and that's the only thing in the entire contract that says they have to give it to you. I saw that done once by like a kind of a big outfit and they had an accountant and blah, blah, blah. I just skipped it because they didn't want to show proof of funds until they felt like it. So we had to counter it back in. So just remind them they may have missed a box, and then if they said, no, we didn't miss it, then you can fix it with a counter offer. You okay with all that?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
You could, you can. Yeah, just, you know what, just write it in there. It's just a check box. Just, you know, try like whatever color they send it to you and try to match it. And if there's something you don't like, everybody else white out. Right?
So
That's, you know, we'll talk about that just for a second.
Show for proof of funds.
Somebody said something that wasn't me because that wasn't my voice.
Yeah, what are the different documents that you could use to provide proof of funds?
Different documents.
Oh, how do you do it?
No,
How do you do it?
what documents are good?
Bank statements are always good.
Yeah, some of the shows you got the money I've had, and that it's liquid. Bank statements are great, you know, but you want to be careful with bank statements, right? You want to black out every possible thing that could cause the guy grief, you know. Yeah, bank statements. Or I did a mobile home one time. It was a $200,000 mobile home. They were paying cash. They sent me a statement from an account that had $2.1 million in it. I thought, oh, deal. God, thank you. That's a great proof of funds, right? The level of confidence in that offer went through the roof right that minute. It didn't say like 2.1 million. Hey, awesome.
You're getting just a letter from the CPA stating that they're qualified for this now.
I guess somebody that's like representing the entity that has access to their accounts could do it. Yeah, we use letters from like bankers all the time. Yeah, Joe Blow has X amount of funds on account with us. The CPA saying this guy's got a lot of money. You know where it is? Is it liquid? Like, what are we doing? You might want to tighten that up a little bit, I think. Yeah, that's what I think. And then, you know, do you know people? That's kind of a thing too. So it takes care of cash on the, and I was glad that Howard hit this. 3D1, first loan in the amount of, so that's where your loan amount goes. I can't remember any of the numbers on this. I don't know what loan to value I put in there. LTV is a term you'll hear lenders kick around, loan to value. It means what percent of the purchase price is the loan. So if you had a $400,000 deal with a $300,000 loan, that's a 75% LTV, 25% down. You can put the loan amount in there and the software will do the rest of the math. But the thing I want to touch on is CAR's latest position on 3D1, which people have written stuff in there for years, like, well, because 3D1 talks about how big the loan's going to be, what kind of financing is it going to be, conventional FHA, VA, seller financing, and whatever box you check there, if you check a box, is going to pull in the corresponding form. The FHA, VA, they have a form, FVAC, and the seller financing has an SFA, and it'll pull those forms in if you check that box. Whatever that loan's going to be, it says, if you're following along, this loan shall be at a fixed rate, not to exceed blank. And I've seen them write everything in there, including leave it blank. Amy and I go around and around on that thing. She likes leaving it blank or putting in best available or something like that. So CAR's attorneys are saying, you know, you probably left out a material fact, because now you have no way of controlling whether this guy's even got a loan contingency necessarily. They're thinking that's leaving that blank is a bigger hole in the contract than I ever thought it was. So they hit it pretty hard when I was in training Thursday to make sure you put something in there. The main reason you put something in there is to protect your buyer. So if you got a guy that's looking pretty good on the loan, a little squeaky maybe, he's pretty tight, like, and he's good to go at like 4%, and he could probably survive about 4.25. You cap that at 4.25 where that 5 is, because if it goes to 4.26, he can bail on the deal. He can stay in if he wants, but that creates an out for the buyer if rates go nuts. Now the banks will tell you rates are going to go nuts any minute, and they've been saying that since I forgot when, 2010, and it's complete garbage. They're not going anywhere. All the economics and stuff says we still got a housing shortage. None of that has changed. No real estate economic force has changed, other than the banks just want to get more money when they sell money. Nothing else has caused those rates to go up. That's why the Fed doesn't move, nobody moves. The economy's not there, especially the real estate economy. So cap that, and then also put points in there. I mean, points just aren't a thing anymore. You know, it used to be the interest rate's like 9%. Well, you can't get qualified for anything because it's so high. So you'd pay a point, which is like sort of like prepaid interest, I guess you could say, and you pull that rate down a little bit. So now you're qualified at 7.75 because you paid a point, and a point is a percent of the loan amount, not a percent of the purchase price. I heard about mention that. If you're borrowing $200,000, a point's $2,000, not $4,000. If it's a $400,000 deal, it's a percent of the loan amount. So the key to that thing is fill that and put something in there. And you guys will be talking about like what kind of rates you think ought to go in there and stuff like that. That 5, I'm not helping my buyer much because what are rates now? Like 4, 3.9. So the last ones I wrote lately, I capped them at 4.25 because they're good buyers, they can handle that. But if it goes to 4.5, they can go, that payment's a little higher than we thought it was going to be. What can we do? Bail. You're out. Or stay, whatever. But now you have an out. You can actually get out because that rate went up over the rate that the buyer stated they were going to be comfortable with.
Can't they buy a point down?
Can. Yep. Can, but you don't have to. That's the beauty of that thing. It's like you can do anything you want to stay in the deal, but you don't have to. You can get out if you need to. Okay, whoops, go a little bit deep there. Is that H? Yeah. So H and J together, 3H and J. What I want to say about that is when you're getting a loan, you want the pre-approval letter to basically combine H and J when you have the buyer because you want a really good pre-approval letter. Now you can slip garbage pre-approval letters by most agents in this business. I do it all the time. I don't like them because I don't want to work with people that can't close. But I've seen people say, oh man, we got the pre-qual. Well, it doesn't say anything except I talked to the guy on the phone and he sounded like really nice. And then the idiot listing agent is going, hey, we got the letter. You got nothing, pal. What you need is verification of down payment and closing costs. Buyer or buyer's lender or loan broker, blah, 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 will write a letter that says it's in there. And in J, they'll also write a letter that says they've pulled the credit, they've verified the funds, they've pulled the credit, the buyer has actually filled out a loan app, all that stuff has to be in the pre-approval. When you get a pre-approval letter as the listing agent from a buyer's agent, from a selling agent, that says, I talked to him on the phone and he was awesome and the kids are like really cute and pretty sure he's got the money and stuff, which mid-state bank letters, that's generally what they say because they don't want to tell you anything. It's like, hey, your letters are crap. I'm not taking them. Don't take it. Make them go back and redo it. I want to see that it matched the contract because the contract says you will get a letter that says they've made a loan app, they've verified funds, they've pulled a credit report, and they're happy with it. So they've got the money to close, they can qualify for the loan because their credit's good, they verified their assets, and they have a loan app that now they can go verify their income and all that stuff.
Can we require that they're cross-qualified with our lender?
Can you? That's an excellent question. I have a hard time with the legal questions, but your seller might be able to, I remember I'm just harkening back to the bank repo days. I was in them in like 1990. And then when they came back, I said, I'm not doing it. I do not care. I do not list that crap with me because I'm not dealing with those idiot people that do all that kind of stuff. And I did it anyway because I got new construction. Oh, okay, now they got a $2 million bank repo. I'm in. And then after the second one, I was out because I hated asset managers. Like, you don't know anything. Get out of my deal. Why am I paying you? But that's where I used to see that. And subdivisions will do it, right? You get a new development, and they'll say, you have to be pre-approved with so-and-so. I think the out is you don't have to use them. It's really hard to make them use them. Now you're somewhere between RESPA and I don't know what. I mean, that's getting a little dark for me.
I would recommend that you get cross-qualified if you want to offer.
I think you can tell them you gotta get pre-qualified with my lender, and then you can go do whatever you want. So yeah, I think that's legit.
It seems to me that if you receive a pre-approval letter from XYZ mortgage.
Okay, now it's already suspect because I never heard of X.
That complies with the contract. So I would say you can ask them to get another pre-qual.
Yeah, I think it's hard for the well, yeah, right. If they've satisfied, I always ask them for one if they missed the boat on the contracts. Like, yeah, that you didn't comply, that won't work. We don't, you're out of contract. I could give you a notice to perform because your letter's no good. But as far as just being picky, I don't know. They have to know that ahead of time. I mean, part of the MLS, the code ethics and all that stuff is to level the playing field. So I don't know. That's an excellent question. Those are probably over my pay grade. I'm just a farms guy. I'm not an attorney. I stayed the Holiday Inn once. I don't know. That's all I got. So 11 yet, almost. So the another part of paragraph 3, when you're buying a house, and it doesn't matter if you're getting a loan or not, which is one reason they separated the contingency. The loan and the appraisal contingency were tied together until, I can't remember when, 2012, 2014, something like that. There was a previous iterations, if there's such a word, of the contract had loan and appraisal in one paragraph. And it was like the cash guys go, I'm getting an appraisal. I got to write that in somewhere else because I'm not getting a loan. Like, what's the deal? You know? So now the appraisal contingency is separate. Now it's got its own paragraph 3I. I don't know why it's in the middle. It shouldn't be. So that guys that aren't getting a loan can still say, oh, and by the way, we're doing an appraisal and I have an appraisal contingency. It has to appraise or I'm not buying it, even though I'm not getting a loan. So the loan contingency and the appraisal contingency are two different contingencies. What do they have to do with? Like the appraisal, who qualifies for the appraisal contingency? How is the appraisal contingency satisfied? That's what I'm trying to say.
Who pays for it?
No, how is it? What happens? Why is it in there? Kind of, I guess.
So
Really.
the buyer to make sure that it appraises toward the amount that they feel is per month.
Well, actually, so it appraises for the purchase price or more is what the contract says. But that's the property has to qualify is where I was trying to go with that, and I was having a hell of a time. So the property has to qualify to continue the deal under the appraisal contingency. The borrower has to qualify. The buyer has to qualify under the loan contingency. Two separate qualifications where, you'll see that in the MLS, a deal fell out through no fault of buyer. Oh, really? Did the house not appraise? There's nobody left but the house. Just saying. No fault of property always means like, hey, it appraised, the buyer sucked. Right. All right. So we're going to skip all that stuff. Go down to allocation. Am I? Yeah. So long story short on all these contingency periods and all that stuff, those pre-printed numbers are okay. You can change them. We change them all the time for lots of reasons, and we'll get into that too. But there's quite a bit of science behind the pre-printed ones. They're okay. 17 days for the appraisal, 21 days for the loan. We usually need the appraisal done before we're going to remove the loan contingency. They are independent of one another. If you remove the appraisal contingency somewhere along the line and it doesn't appraise, you're screwed. You're buying it anyway. Your loan contingency does not contain an appraisal component, if that made sense. You still, if it appraised and you qualify for the loan, you better think of some other reason not to buy that house. And it better be good faith, and you better be able to tell the seller what it is. The seller has a right when you cancel to ask, like, why did you do that? Because both parties have a duty of good faith to each other in the contracts, the RPA and all these, the way they're written. So you got to play fair. You can't just go, I found another house. You better think of something. It better be good. Usually that's what it is. I found another house. Especially in the summer, we got a little more inventory. We'll talk about sale of buyer's property and all that stuff in another session. Let's just go down to allocation of costs. Paragraph 7 is all about, 7A is all about who's doing what reports. There's usually no work in there. Every one of those lines says report. You can put something in there. This is a place, now that they took all the check boxes out for the pest control report, this is a place you can write in. Paragraph 1 defaults or is already pre-printed for the NHD, Natural Hazard Zone Disclosure Report, legally required as far as I'm concerned in every transaction there's ever going to be, period. It's just the way it is. Nobody should shoulder the liability of an NHD. Paragraph 2 is blank. It could be anything. So you could put right in there. Seller should pay for the following report. And we've actually put the work in there. It's not necessarily right, but it just sets it up ahead of time because basically there's nowhere else to write it. So you could say seller to provide a Section 1 pest control clearance, contractor of their choice or something like that. You can write that pest control language right in there. And then other reports like, I don't know, well, septic and stuff like that used to be in paragraph 7. Now they have their own form. Did I bring my book? What did I do with that big ass book? Put it under the pulpit, yeah. If you need a form, We have one. This is zip forms printed in a binder. Yeah, those are nothing but forms. That's all. Whatever you can think of, you probably have a form for it. There's a form for that. You're ready. 7B, I brought that up at the association meeting the other day. Like, people are starting to, somebody got a big dumb idea and started influencing people on how to handle this paragraph. 7B, I just check all the boxes. 7B1, and I check them all seller, unless we're negotiating and the buyer says, yeah, I'm, trying to cut a deal, so I'm paying for all the seller's responsibilities. But they are generally seller responsibilities by the law. So 7B1 says seller shall pay for smoke alarm, carbon monoxide device, blah, blah, blah. And it says right after that, if required by law. 2I says if required by law. 2I's, 2, whatever that is. All these say if required by law. If it's not required, you don't have to do it. So it's okay if you check those boxes, because whatever law is in place, you've now obligated the seller to comply with the law. And if there isn't a law, they don't have to do it. So I don't know why some of these companies are countering out 7B2, I think, I can't remember. One of them says seller shall pay for the cost of doing something even if it survives the close of escrow. And they're getting a little nervous about that. Well, if it's legally mandated for the seller to do it, you cannot circumvent the law just because you're a real estate agent writing an offer and you don't like the way that sounds. So I don't know what you guys are going to do, I don't know, but I just check all those boxes and call it good. My templates have all those boxes automatically checked. And it reminds me to make sure I got to deal with those boxes. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. You can't rewrite the law. You can't rob banks either. Right? I mean, there's stuff you just can't do. Those are two of them. That's right. Escrow, the templates lady is going to take care of escrow and title, but California, we're going to have an escrow. We're going to get title insurance because that's how we roll. And there's check boxes there that get left unchecked all the time. Almost the one that gets unchecked, left unchecked more than anything else is C2. Somebody shall pay for owner's title insurance policy specified in paragraph 13, E by so-and-so, and they just leave it blank. So your job as a contract expert is, you don't want a contract full of holes. You tighten that sucker up. You counter back in whatever you think's right. Talk to them. Like, did you guys miss a box? Ah, dang it. Yeah. Can you fix it? Yeah, we'll counter you with it. Or what's another way you can fix a contract if everybody else is otherwise happy with it? Period. Sorry, that was a comma. Counter offer or addendum. Wish I had a donut for you.
No, can you cross out and have everybody initial?
If you're in Bakersfield, yeah.
I don't want that.
No, you mean like somebody writes an offer, then you're representing the other side and you write on their offer? Oh, well.
I want details, not the word for it, but it's saying C1.
Part of the contract, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've sent the contract in. So who do you represent in the deal? And I'll answer that for you.
The buyer.
Okay, you represent the buyer. Who's doing all the crossing out?
Buyer. So in other words, if I'm sitting with the buyer and he says, I'll pay for that. And so they check to sell it because I went there and I didn't have to check sell.
Well, you always write them in the software. Never print these if you can possibly do it, because they're harder to change because now you got to scribble on them. In California, you cannot strike through in a contract. Everybody does it. You can't take a ruler and strike out deals. That's why Zip Forms in like 49 other states has a strike through button. If you don't like a paragraph, you can strike it out in Zip Forms when you're not in California. You can't do that here. Now, is that customary? Do people do that all the time? All the time. Oh, everybody will just change that and we'll all initial it. Yeah, it's customarily, we're getting away with it. It'll probably hold up in court, but you want to be good or you want to be messy? I'm just saying, it's like you got the forums and it's all on the internet. It's like you do it on your phone. I mean, I think just fix it. They're paying you like $25,000 to be in this deal. For Christ's sake, waste a piece of paper on them. Right? Give them a break. Well, you don't think I got that speech this week from that lady on Equestrian? She was listed with a guy that was charging her 1%. Well, the next guy in ain't doing that. So, boy, I better be paying for some stuff. And I'm like, no, we're not partners. It's your house. You're paying for it. I'm not paying for this. What? Round and around about that stuff. Okay. And then the temple lady will take care of paragraph, what are we at, 4 now? No, 7. 7D. Because that's a lot of stuff you kind of want pre-checked, I think. How far past 11 am I? Oh, not far.
1 minute.
All right. Let's see, how late was I starting?
11:10.
All right. You owe me 10 minutes. You really like me. You want to date me. So here's an important one, right? 8A. In my 144 slides or whatever it is, the only paragraph 8 thing they have in the slides is 8B. So Howard saw that and he goes, where's the important part? 8A says, read along with me now, if you can. I hope you guys can see it. And it's kind of funny because it's pretty important. So it says 8A, note to buyer and seller. Who would read that? A note to buyer and seller? Yeah, whatever. Get to the meat of this thing. Items listed as included or excluded in the MLS, flyers, or marketing materials are not included in the purchase price or excluded from the sale unless specified in paragraph 8B or C. When you go to court, what they talk about, and you're not going to go to court, no one ever does. They talk about the 4 corners of the contract. When the attorneys and the judge and everybody are looking at your deal, they're not looking at the MLS or any of that junk. If they've got a contract problem, they're within the 4 corners of the contract. This is the ruling document of that transaction. And it's the escrow instructions, because ever since about 1996, we combined the two. If it ain't in here, it didn't happen and it's not gonna. So just because there's a picture of a chandelier in the MLS and then the buyer, well, chandelier's a bad example. There's a fountain is better in the backyard. And it's big enough it's small enough for me to just pick up and leave with it. Or maybe a kid swing set or something like that, right? And the MLS has beautiful pictures of the backyard and all the stuff in it and everything's awesome. And the buyers are buying it because they really love the swing set. If it's not in here and the seller wants it, it's gone. Just because it was in the MLS and they go, but yeah, you got pictures and everything. It was in all the flyers. That'd be like saying that pond at the back of the ranch had water in it in the flyer. You better go get some water. There's been a drought. It's dry. Yeah, right. It's almost as good as my Robin Banks thing. So that, I mean, the rest of 8B is important, but 8A is the thing people get caught on and screwed up on is they're looking at a flyer or the MLS or Zillow or something and they go, oh, it's awesome. It's got the thing. I wonder if they're leaving it, or, ooh, I hate that thing. I hope they take it. Write it down, put it in there. And I get screwed up every once in a while on my templates because I check all those boxes. I always want all stoves, all washing dryers, all refrigerators, everything every time in case I forget to ask. So my template's all ready to go. And when it goes in there, they might have to counter me back going, there isn't even a stove in here. Like, okay, right, then give me all stoves. None is, don't give me any. But you're not getting a stove if you don't ask for it necessarily because of what 8A says. Just because you think you are doesn't mean you are if it's not in here. Now, the key to it is, and it's probably the second most problematic thing in 8, is fixtures are included. So fortunately for us, through the brilliance of CAR, they've listed fixtures. Existing electrical, mechanical, lighting, plumbing, and heating fixtures, ceiling fans, fireplace inserts, gas logs and grates, solar power, built-in appliance, window and door screens, blah, blah, blah. Awning shutters, window coverings. There goes that balance she made to match the bedspread. Staying with the house right there. You better get it for her down below. So we got a big list of what's staying in there. When there's a question, there's an acronym for it. You guys will have to Google it. It's Maria. So just Google fixtures, Maria, and you'll find out it's MARIA. So it's material, application, blah, blah, relativity, some crap like that. I forgot what it was. Google it.
So quick question. You're
No, I'm sorry, no questions. Go ahead.
You're listing the house. Is there a place where you can indicate this ahead of time so you don't have to counter every single contract? Is there one little special thing you want to take?
Anybody?
What was the question? If you're listing a house and there's kind of a unusual thing that the seller wants to take with you, is there a place you can indicate that so you don't have to counter every single offer that comes in with, sorry, but we're taking the stove?
It still has to be done in this contract.
Yeah,
So.
Still has to be-
it's got to be in the contract, but you can give them a heads up if that's what you're asking.
What's the official way of potentially doing a heads up so you don't have to counter?
Put in the MLS. Yeah, put in the MLS and then be awake when you get offers. You're going to have to counter them. I mean, that, and it's just, you know, write it in, no big deal.
That you can ask Melissa this point of potential litigation right now that the agent put it in the MLS and she feels that it was in the MLS, it was part of the contract. And they took the alarm system. We're going back and saying, we expected to have the alarm here, it was not part of the contract. And I know that it was in that case.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, we're going to get an alarm replaced or put back. So MLS does not mean part of the contract.
But yeah, so it's a good place, like you're saying, to give them a heads up. Like you tell them somewhere, yeah, put it in the agent remarks. Don't muddy up your public remarks. Are actually, the rule is they're for marketing, not negotiating, not giving out gate codes, none of that. So you gotta sell the sizzle, not the steak, in the public remarks. All the detail crap that a buyer's agent might need to know, you put that in the agent remarks. And then you're hoping they're reading them, but these are realtors. There's a saying as old as I am, realtors don't read.
But I have a question. I unmuted myself.
Sorry, no questions.
Gary, come on.
Go ahead.
But let me tell you what David's referring to. So then the agent wrote in after I made my offer on the additional exclusions
On your contract?
on my contract.
Yeah.
And then she said, well, I just wrote it in there because it was noted on the MLS. And if you go back to 8, what was it? 8.
That's right. You're in Bakersfield, aren't you?
Yes, right.
Yeah, we did darn right to do it all the time. I used to be managed by a company from Bakersfield, and all we did was fight. That's all we. So what part of this do you want me to backdate again? What now? That's why they they want to have their own MLS, and they're you know what, we don't need rest, y'all. We're gonna be fine. We just, you know, why don't you just go back over there to the beach, we can come over and take over up in that Boomhauer. That's right. So, all right, we'll let you out of here pretty soon. Let's see. I want to talk about closing of possession and liquidated damages and arbitration and acceptance and delivery, and I'll do it all in a minute and a half ish. Paragraph 9, another one not to leave blank, even though there's some helpful stuff in there. You don't really need to mess with it too much if your buyer is an owner-occupant. A little couple is buying the house, the little couple that's in there is leaving, and your guys are moving in. That takes care of 9A. Buyer intends to occupy, that's the default, is we're moving in, it's our primary residence, we're going to live there. There's so much I want to tell you. It's important to make sure that thing matches the loan you're getting when you're writing property, when you're writing offers for investors. I don't even like using this contract. I never have. The other one, there's a residential investment purchase agreement that says in no uncertain terms, I'm not living there. So if you miss that checkbox, you just wrote an owner-occupied offer for the guy who's trying to do an exchange. You can't owner-occupy your exchange. So you got to be careful with that. The timing is, and David brought some stuff up once, so I went over it with the entire class down there. What do you do about the time between the close of escrow and when the people finally get out? So there's two things that are going to happen. Escrow is going to close at a time uncertain on a date uncertain until you're practically there. Like we're closing escrow on a deal I'm in Friday. I'm pretty sure. Money ain't in yet. Shows up today, I'm feeling pretty good. If it shows up Thursday night, I'm starting to worry a little bit. If it's like late, you know, doesn't show up till Friday morning, I'm not recording at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm recording at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's kind of up in the air a little bit. So it's going to be a little problematic with that. So the default is possession shall be delivered to buyer at 6 p.m. on the date of close of escrow. How do we define close of escrow in our neck of the woods? Not Bakersfield here. Kind of stuff doing. Nope. When it's recorded, yeah. Recordation is evidence as constructive public notice of that thing changed hands, and they got a timestamp on them. We know when it was, right? So 6 p.m. on the date of close escrow, which is the date of recordation of the deed, right? And the disbursement happens after recordation of the deed. You know, the money gets paid and blah blah. But you already own the house before you ever get your pad back, and before the agents get their commissions. Not very long. We get paid pretty fast. So I thought David's point was well taken. We used to write noon in here all the time. So, we're not getting confirmation like 15, 20 years ago till about 10:30 or 11. So we're going to say confirmation is the close, because now we know that they didn't get turned away at the window for a smudgy notary stamp. That can happen. First American can be at the window and the county can tell them go back and do that over. It doesn't happen often, but it could happen. So when we get confirmation, we used to put them in the house like right after that. I'm really thinking about writing in there upon confirmation or upon recordation, because we hear now, you record at 8:05, you hear at 8:10 now, because the gal that took all the crap up to the county just gets on the cell phone and goes, we're in. So I'm thinking about changing that. But David's point was well taken, like who's responsible for the house? What's going on there? When their seller's moving out and they break all the windows because they're trying to get like this moose head out of the living room or something, and they break the chandelier and knock over the grandfather clock and God knows what else. Who's on the hook for that? There was no definitive decision from that entire group, including the attorney. So people started showing me the contract language that they're rewriting this part in other terms and saying upon recordation of the deed, or something like as soon as practical after, or some junk like that, or ASAP, I don't know what it was, quick, but not later than noon or not later than 6 or something. So it's like, hey, get out and get your crap out yesterday, man. And I'm thinking it's like, okay, if it's going to record at 8 o'clock Friday morning, it funded and everything no later than about noon or so on Thursday, and everybody knew, because with a closing disclosure and all that stuff, we kind of know when we're going to fund now. We're starting to get a handle on when this thing's going to happen. Get out, move, go away, beat it, get them out. So I think the day it records, they shouldn't be there anymore. Now you always got extenuating circumstances and all that stuff, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And sometimes it's a negotiating strategy where you tell the seller, hey, you know what? I know you're broke. I know it. You couldn't hire a moving truck if I had a gun. So you're going to need your money. So you know what? We're going to create a relationship whereby you can stay there for a little while, like 3 to 5 days, less than 30. And they just rewrote that form in June, which theoretically is going to be a big help. It's called the SIP. So in 9C, it says, if the seller's going to stay a little bit later, there's a form for them staying a little bit later, and it's not a lease agreement, it's a license. And you guys probably remember from business law and stuff, maybe what a license is. And my best analogy, because it's one I remember when somebody finally was able to teach me what it was. When you go to the movies and they hand you a ticket, that's a license. At the end of that movie, it's no good, now get out of my theater. Same thing here. I'll give you a license to stay in that house until 6 p.m. 3 days after it closes at 6:01. You better be gone. You have no rights. I'm not your landlord. You're not my tenant. Get out. And you can enforce those now. Now with, you can try and enforce them. It's people. With the old SIP, which created a tenancy, you'd have to do an unlawful detainer. So if they were going to be there 7 days, now they're there automatically 10. I mean, if you're the fastest attorney in the West, it's still going to take you 3 days to get that done. Basically a 3-day notice to quit. So changing that to a license helped quite a bit. Then if they're going to stay 30 days or longer, there's a 5-page form that actually creates a tenancy. It's a rental agreement between the seller and the buyer. The buyer is landlord and the seller as tenant. So no one gets to stay after it closes ever without those forms in there. It's just, can't stress that enough. The other one that people miss all the time is 9D. It says what's supposed to happen with the tenants. Like, what are you doing with the tenants? Well, did you change the contract? No, I didn't. I left it default. That means the tenants need to be out 5 days before it closes escrow. Well, how long is your escrow? Are you sure that's legal? You got a 30-day escrow, you want the tenants out in 25, good luck with that. There's not such thing as a 25-day notice. So you got to be paying attention to that thing and address it as is necessary. And there's lots of tenant law. I mean, there's so much tenant law from the bank repo days. There's the old new law, the new old law, the new law, and the old law. We had those in like a year and a half. We had 4 legislation changes on how do you get rid of a tenant, because they were getting surprised by the sheriff knocking on the door representing the bank going, get out, where the cash for keys came from. So I give you 10 grand to get out, now get out. Oh, bye. See ya. Okay, still with me? Any more questions? Not you, Melissa. Just kidding. No, I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
Just watch her. Going back to Monday, I heard you correctly, you said that it would never be owner occupied if it was an exchange. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, because what do we exchange?
But what if it were like a duplex, so you had a duplex and you were renting out one side, and now you're buying another duplex and you're moving in and renting out the other side?
So you're doing half an exchange. You can do that. You can bifurcate your transaction. So part of it's exchange and part of it isn't. In that case, I'd go ahead with owner occupied. Yeah. Yep. Good question. That was a great question. Yeah, we forget about that, right? A lot of these guys, Coker Ellsworth, first thing they ever owned was a mobile home. Second thing they ever owned was a duplex. Now he just retired into the shoe mash and is just trying to get rid of all the money he made in real estate, and he hasn't done it yet. He started with a mobile home. Big guy, Eddie Ellsworth's kid. You know Coker? Yeah, right. He's something else. I tell you what. Pretty good for a kid. That all happened to him 40 years ago.
Gary, this is good stuff. We could, we don't have to follow that schedule. We can finish this up next week too.
Oh, okay.
Don't feel like
You mean stop?
No.
Which is okay. All right. Yeah, it's hard to. I've seen Gov do the contract in 1 hour, and I've tried to take notes of how do you do that. Of course, there's like no questions or anything until he's done. And basically he talks about there's 6 contingencies in the contract, and he just addresses the 6 contingencies and doesn't do anything else. I can never remember all of them.
Well, do we want to take a consensus and keep going, or do we want to cancel, transfer on and
Woo.
Gary?
11:20. I'm good. I can go all day, man. I tell you, Linda knows. And she was
Are we
fearful.
set for another time, or do we want to keep going?
All right. Yeah, I can. I'll.
Take off, but do you have official classes you offer? I mean, obviously it sounds.
Apparently now, yeah.
But I mean, you do regular classes where you can spend 4 or 5 hours.
I haven't. Maybe. Maybe, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I can't stay.
I'll be
so
back.
I'll watch the recording.
It's still recording.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to go to lick damages and arbitration. In fact, yeah, let's do that. So we're paragraph 9.
Well, we go another 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I can wrap it up in 10
more
minutes.
and wrap it up.
That'll do it. Yep.
Because I started at
What time is it? What time is it? Paragraph 14 is like a day in itself. I tell you, it used to get an entire hour, just paragraph 14, because that is the heart and soul of this contract. It's about the time you find out something broke and you want it fixed. Liquidated damage is like 20, right? 21 was way off. So what I promised you was you were going to be able to take a call from a buyer and write an offer this afternoon, not even have to call me. But you haven't got your template set up yet. Template lady. Yeah. Okay. Make Linda help you set up your template. I'll help you. I'll help you. You'd get a rise up.
I'm going.
All right. Okay. So liquidated damages and arbitration. The trouble with, there's a kind of a problem with these. The trouble with these is these are optional clauses in the contract. They have their own set. Back in the day when I first started, every paragraph in the contract, probably only had 10, but every paragraph had initials, like the Century 21 local area disclosure thing. Keller Williams got one. It's like property has pitch, pine, canker, whatever that beetle is that eats pine trees. And there's 2 initial places. So if both parties initial, it's in. If one or none do, it's out. So that's why these initial blocks are here. They have to be initialed by everybody in the contract or they're out. And it is critical that you know that. And this is where the Bakersfield guys are going to go back in and write on your contract. When the buyer signs the contract, no one can touch it anymore, ever. It has to be handled with counteroffers. And what was the other form? Addendums. Addenda. These are optional clauses. That's the trouble with them. It's like, so the buyer says, so what is that? Do we have to do that? You want to say yes? Kind of want to say yes. Everybody does it. It's kind of an industry standard. I wish I could just tell you yes. I'm afraid of the entire battery of CAR attorneys telling me, like, that's an optional clause. You can't even really talk to them about it. Well, who's going to talk to them about it if I can't talk to them? I'm the only one here. Where are you, Neil? Where are you, Gov? Well, they've written some FAQs, and they're on the CAR website. CAR.org has FAQs, frequently asked questions, and little handouts and stuff about liquidated damages and arbitration. But I will make the speech I make. It's like, it's very common to see these included, I'll tell you that. It would be uncommon to see them not in the contract. There still is no obligation for anybody to initial these, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we're talking to them first, right? So let me walk you through it, and then you guys decide what you're gonna do. And if you can get your hands on those handouts, which I never have at the time, that'll help them. Now, how long did that just make your signing go? Like, you just added 30 minutes, you know, so it's, you know, you gotta be ready for that. So liquidated damages is Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you had your cell phone contract with, if you had your cable bill with, if you had any of that with you now, it would have liquidated damages and arbitration in it, and you didn't even know it. Liquidated damages basically says, if we run into an insurmountable problem due to a breach of contract, we have already decided how the seller was damaged. Because when you sue for damages. And a lot of the, I've been scrolling. I guess I better just finish in 5 minutes, right? There's a timer. Where was I going with that? Okay, so if there's a breach, when sellers are going to sue, the way attorneys defend the buyers is they say, it's a rising market. How were you damaged? How were you damaged? You got a new buyer in here, you got $25,000 extra because it was 60 days later than the first deal. You were taking 25 less on, you have no damages. Yeah, but I hated it. I'm like mental anguish and stuff. You know? So this says, I'll tell you how you were damaged. I have a $10,000 deposit. You were damaged 10 grand, and we're done, and we're out. No court, no nothing. Bye. Only happens if there's a breach. Doesn't happen otherwise. There are ways to treat a deposit we'll talk about later, which are more creative and frowned upon generally by the legal community, unless they've written the agreement that has it therein. So liquidated damages says buyer fails to complete this purchase because of buyer's default. Not because buyer had a contingency. Some buyers all out of contingencies, has a dream at night, wakes up in the middle of the night and says, oh my God, I can't buy that house. We have no contingencies left. Oh my God, they funded this morning. What are you even talking about? Can't buy it. Get me out of that deal. We'll get you out of that deal. How am I going to get you out of that deal? You're going to ask. It happens. Sometimes the seller on a rising market, the seller say, actually, I have 14 backups. Like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. It should probably cost you some money to get that loan and stuff. I'll see you around. It's all good. Don't expect that, but it could happen. Now, worst case, you can't come to terms. The deposit is the seller can keep the deposit. It's within the mechanics of the contract for the seller to keep the deposit, and there's a lot more stuff that applies to find out whether that happens or not. But that's what it's there for. So you can move on because it's just too expensive to screw around, suing each other and all that other junk. It says if the buyer breaches, leave the deposit on the table and get out. Questions? Oh, I wanted to be over here, didn't I? Paragraph 22. All right, okay, fine. Must be a place in here somewhere I can doctor this. Here we go. Shut up. Man. Back to 22. There's a case now that's like the poster child case for mediation. It says in the contract, you will mediate. There's no initials for that one. You will mediate. You will not go to court without mediating. Paragraph 22 says 22A mediation. You got a problem, you're going to mediate. You ain't going nowhere else first. You're mediating first. Try going to court first. For $13,500 in discrepancies or whatever in an argument, damages that somebody skipped mediation and went to court on, cost them $113,500 in attorney fees to collect the 13 grand because they skipped mediation, thereby forfeiting their ability to collect the fees. That's the latest, biggest, worst one CAR could find that said, just make sure they know they're going to mediate and don't let them go to court with it. If you got an ambulance chaser attorney that doesn't do a whole lot of real estate and he smells blood in the water with a $5 million deal, tell him, not yet, go on mediation first, just saying. You don't want to be the reason that it took the guy $100,000 to collect 10. It just gets better. Arbitration. When I was working for Byron, we were the last office in the entire market area to agree that we would ever even explain that to somebody. All we ever told them was, we're not attorneys. It's an optional clause. There's no possible way I even understand that. Stop making me do it. Stop countering it in. We're not doing it. Finally, I had to cave because everybody was doing it. You're going to see it in just about every deal you do. And in your cell phone contract and everything else, there's arbitration of disputes. But it is, due to the initials again, an optional clause. In fact, if your digital signing signature is working right, your buyers will run right over that without signing it, because that signature block for them to hit it for initials is supposed to be optional. Stop that. You see that, dude.
Yeah.
Not doing that again.
Keep going.
All right. So, so I asked, I know, all right, boys club. So I asked Neil Kayla one time, I said, you know what, I don't know what to say about this damn thing. You know, everybody wants it in, you know, listing agents are all over. Like, we want to arbitrate. You'll see more now in the big deals, they don't want it. They're like, oh, no. When the crap hits the fan, we're saddling up. I got a bus full of attorneys. I'll stomp you in the ground like a tent peg, boy. Arbitrate my ass. We'll get that mediation out of the way, and I'll crush you. I'll kill your whole family. That hits you so hard. And that's how they roll. And attorneys, that'll be the day when somebody that doesn't work for CAR thinks that's a good idea. They're out of work. You go into arbitration, and arbitration, unless there's a mistake, a lack of jurisprudence, if you do the arbitration wrong, that's the only thing on earth you can set it aside for. It's legal, final, binding arbitration. It's over. You can't go to court after that unless you can prove there was a mistake in the arbitration. I mean, that's a lot of legal advice in a nutshell, and just, you know, ask an attorney for that answer would be your old supper. But so Neil Kalin says, he goes, I'll tell you what, why arbitration is good. So I've been waiting to hear that, because I don't know why it's good. He says, because when you're going to go to court, they have control, a lot of control, I guess, with the arbiters now. So when you're going to go to court, if the real estate judge has the flu that day and you're on the docket, they can have the traffic judge hear it. And they can say, you know, I bought 3 or 4 houses, I'll take that case. There could be some nuances in that case that made it go all the way to court, but this guy doesn't have a clue and he has no business even being on the bench to hear it. So with the arbitration, it has to be a retired judge or an attorney. I can't remember if they can still be practicing or not, but if they're retired, it has to be, they have to have practiced real estate law or they can't be an arbiter in this. So that cleaned it up quite a bit. So now CAR likes who you're going to get on the panel better than they like your chances in court. And then you got to go, how do you feel about that? Because you can't make this decision. Does everybody do it? Most people do. You got to answer the questions, you know, but you got to do it without kind of trying to lead them, and then you're doing the best you can, best job you can. CAR always says, just give them the handout. And then they're going to ask you, what does that even mean? And you're right back in the hot seat where you were 5 minutes.
Coldwell Banker doesn't want their clients to send it.
Oh, really? They're not signed? Yeah, but like I said, over at Byron's, we were just telling them, no, don't do it. Because, you know, it was a 4-page contract. Half of 1 page was arbitration. Like, really? Where are we going to put the rest of it? Any questions on that?
I would say that if they sign the arbitration, they get the issue dealt with faster.
Yep. Yeah, it'll save you some time. Like, are you planning on breaching? You know, that's part of our job. I tell people all the time, okay, liquidated damages and arbitration is in here. Now, maybe we didn't want it, but the seller does. If you want this deal, that's their counter. We got to keep countering it back and forth. Or we got to go with it, and they go, well, I'll go with it. Well, were you planning to breach? I mean, that's part of my job, is make sure you know your deadlines and all that stuff, and you don't blow through your contingencies early or any of that. And don't breach. Probably won't have a problem if we don't breach.
The other thing, Gary, you've already said this, a lot of times you get the buyer to sign the arbitration, the seller won't. If both of those are not an issue, you don't have a valid contract.
Well, you don't have arbitration. Arbitration's out. Your contract's okay, but arbitration's out.
Even if you breach, Gary, they're still loose at the top, right?
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
This is optional. This is
Yeah,
not, if you're
If
missing
you're breaching on a
the
contract,
initial, you're not. They used to own that.
Well, so there's two different paragraphs. I mean, to start with that. Yeah, there's two different paragraphs. You got liquidated damages. We're not going to argue. I'm out. Arbitration. I want to fight about it. Everything stops. Right. Yep. Whatever they want to fight about. Yep.
Jumping over to my dad's question.
Yep.
If you don't have an agreed buyer-seller agreed arbitration clause, I was under the impression that the whole contract is invalid because you couldn't agree upon arbitration. You have to, I thought that came.
You have to agree. If the seller
Or not do it.
if the seller accepts that offer and doesn't sign, you really got to watch this stuff. I mean, you're right, because it's automatic. If the buyer's, well, a lot of times I'll get an offer as the listing agent, and I'll call the guy up and go, did you miss liquidated damages and arbitration? Before I do something about it. And half the time they'll go, crap, because the guy missed it in DocuSign or something. And they'll send it back over, and then I get one that's got liquidated damages and arbitration. Now I know what they wanted. Now I go tell my seller how it works, blah, 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 and I ask them what they want to do. So it says, probably. You have another meeting, not me? What?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, that's what Dave just said. There's no signature on the bottom, but there's some reference to arbitration and mediation. Nobody has rights.
Well,
Okay,
that's what I want.
mediation doesn't have any, see, that's two different paragraphs, right? Mediation stands alone. Mediation is in. You can't take it out unless you counter it out. And we don't really want to start countering out pre-printed verbiage in the contract. It's been through too much fire and survived it. Don't mess with the contract. No, that's a stupid clause.
No signature drawing.
Let me ask you, we'll clarify
Liquidated
this real
damages
quick.
and arbitration.
On these items right here, do we have to have buyer and seller both to agree whether they're going to do it or not do it? I
Yep.
can't have one buyer agree and one seller not agree and think I have a valid contract.
You mean the buyer and the
The
seller?
buyer
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
seller.
the entire buying entity and the entire selling entity.
They have to agree on this clause.
But they don't have to do it in the contract.
Once one party does it, the other doesn't.
So what happens is now what we need to look at it, and you can pull it up if you want. If we look at, because I can use the counter offer for delivery. It's in paragraph 1 of the counter offer explains the whole thing. Everybody that ever called me and I said, go get a counter offer, read paragraph 1, call me back. They don't, because it's in there. So optional clauses that have their own set of initials, whether it's liquidated damages and arbitration or not, are not part of the contract unless initialed by all parties. So if you get an offer from a buyer makes an offer and they got liquidated damages initial and not arbitration, let's say. So they got whatever that is, 21A initial, not 22B. So they want lick damages. So you got to ask your seller whether they want lick damages or not. And if they want them, they'll initial liquidated damages within that when they sign that offer. Because whether they're taking the offer or not, they're going to sign it, right? Everybody knows that, right? Yeah, a lot of nodding. Yep.
Yes.
They're going to sign it. But if they're not taking the offer and they're making a counter, there's a checkbox. Little teeny checkbox. Don't miss that one. That says subject on. You see that?
Well, that was her fault this time.
I know, right?
All right.
Gotta go once. So
So it's still valid.
yeah. Long story short, yes, but you have to know what you wound up with. What kind of contract do I have? If I'm missing the seller's initials, I don't have liquidated damages or arbitration in that contract. Now, if the buyer left it all blank and the seller wants it in, you can't go back and write on you don't go back and like they used to do all the time, initial for the seller and then send it back to them for theirs. Once the buyer signs it, you have to stop writing on that form. Don't write on it anymore unless you're agreeing to some stuff that's in there that needs your initials.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. This seems like this could be a deal breaker.
Could be.
Yeah, it depends how hard somebody wants to put you. Damn right. Yep. Yeah, because you can run into a negotiation over liquidated damages and arbitration. Yeah, those are the only people that negotiate. You don't, right? You're not a party to the contract. Paragraph 1. Paragraph 1, paragraph 10, paragraph I don't know what else. You're not a party to this contract. Not the buyer, not the seller. This ain't your deal. You represent them in a fiduciary capacity. You're a lot of help, but you advise, you diagnose, you do stuff like that, and then they decide. You don't decide, they do. They'll try to make you decide every time. What do I do? I don't know. Well, I'm asking you. All
All right, Mr. Gary Grasha,
right.
Thanks, Gary.
thank you for coming.
All right.
We will streamline this process. We'll get the webinar started on time next time. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Love having him. There's a gift for you.
All right.
Appreciate that.
All right,
Guys,
appreciate that, yeah.
Training again tomorrow. Contracts next Wednesday. Keep an eye out for your emails that go out. Go get an escrow. Have a good day. Any other questions, guys? Boom, boom, boom. Nope. All right. Bye, guys.